Hey, what's going on, everybody? Bobby Fi here. Going to talk through this slate. Only playing 30 entries in the lottery, and even that I feel a little funny because I may have to go at any minute. Got evacuated at 4 a.m. this morning, and I went down south to a place that the fires were a little further away, so it's a little bit funky. Just the situation right now, and never know when you're going to get it. I actually got it right before what was it at like 6:55 Eastern time. I got the alarm to leave last night, and then we got the alarm then they got us one 25 minutes later after I packed up and we're ready to go. They said, okay, no, don't leave. Actually, we actually don't want extra people on the roads, and you guys are safe. And then at 4 a.m, it came back. So it's just a kind of a shit show here, to be honest with you. It's really, really scary. And it's just like sad to see just so many people who lost things. And I know people say, oh, well, those people had money, and some people did, some people didn't. And I have friends who did not have much money, who are nearly broke, put everything into their houses, that have lost their homes and their cars and their kids' schools. It's a mess, and it's probably not going to be cleaned up anytime soon. So plan is, for me anyway, before I get into this slate, I'll get into the slate, I promise. I'm going to be down here, down south. And then once we're able to go back home, I'll go back home. And then I'm also going to try and figure out what to do with our family, because if these things continue to spread, it's going to start affecting more things in the area where a lot of them live. So just trying to do the best we can here. So appreciate the kind word, Jimmy, and we'll do the best we can with what we got. And I guess getting into this slate, I'm going to rerun my builds because they're still updating some projections and things like that. This is sort of where I ended up as far as the slate goes as of right now. And my answer to that question from TJ in the chat is that, if Jokic plays, I probably would want to play a good amount of Jokic. I think it makes sense. I think that, we have plenty of value. And that's my rule. Like, look, if we have value in general, and we can afford guys like Jokic, who again is projecting at 60 fantasy points, you could make that number 70, and it seems just as plausible. He just doesn't have those down games often enough to where I wouldn't want to get him. And as of right now, I'm getting to quite a bit of him. It is tricky because we know legitimately he's sick. We know he's a tough guy. He plays through things that other players just don't. And him not playing on that big game against the Celtics, the first one, and then playing the Clippers on the back-to-back, maybe he does come, he's okay enough tonight. And hopefully we can get some early reporting on that, because I would like to try to figure out a way to speculate one way or the other. And obviously if he's out, we have some value plays. Some more value plays we have to at least consider. And not to mention the, spending on guys like Westbrook or Murray and whatnot. So it's a tricky situation with Jokic as of right now. I'm still not entirely sure what I'm going to do, but I think the best way to approach it for me is going to be like, look, it's going to be impossible to stay away from some of Golden State. I am worried they might just get killed in this game, but you just have not enough guys available. Too many good situations. I think that you're getting exposure to probably at least 3 of these guys in most of your builds. You could probably make an argument for even more if you think the game stays close, and you could probably find a way to get to just 2 in certain lineups. But really, really hard at these prices to not get to the Golden State, which is, again, one of the earlier games, which is why I bring it up. Also really like Siakam on the other side. Probably getting to a little bit more than I want right now. I don't think I need to have the full 50%. I'm just going to cap this number at 40. Because I don't think it's an automatic play, and I do worry about the blowout here. I also think TJ McConnell's an interesting guy to maybe speculate a little bit on. So just we're trying to make sure I get a little bit of them. Did it actually work? No, it didn't hold. There we go. And we did get that. Okay, so that's one change I'll make. I also think if you're going to play the stack game, I think you could talk about playing Halliburton a little bit here at very low ownership. So I'm just going to put a little number next to him so I don't end up with none of it. And I know I'm going to get to all the Golden State guys. So it's going to be tricky. This is why it's such a hard slate, because we have Jokic, truly questionable. And if we don't know that by lock, we're missing out on some other good plays. But also, what are we going to do with our Jokic money? Because most of the spend ups by the time we know are going to be gone. And you kind of almost have to force in somebody else from these games just in case. So I'm really, really lost as to what, how to approach this a little bit, because there's no other games. It's an island game at 9 Eastern. So I really don't know how we're supposed to approach it. You could also just X out, all those guys, say, hey, look, maybe Westbrook doesn't even get there, even if Jokic doesn't play. The spread is making it look more like Jokic plays. They wouldn't be probably 15-point favorites or whatever it is if Jokic wasn't in. And that's one thing we were reading the tea leaves before on the other spreads. And obviously on those games, it really looked like Jokic was not going to play. Tonight is not the case. They're 14-point favorites over Brooklyn at home, which does make me think more likely that he's going to play than I did in the other games. So just something to consider. Anyway, I do like the Jokic play if he does play. If he doesn't play, I really think you have to have a plan one way or the other. And as of right now, I haven't formulated my plan well enough. I'm hoping for some news, again, some tea leaf reading before lock. But again, you see the numbers and you kind of think he's probably going to play. Now, you could still just decide not to play him and then not play anyone from that game. That's completely viable. We have other spend ups. We have Giannis against Orlando. Obviously, it's not a great matchup, but he's a little bit cheaper as forward eligibility. There are some center plays today. So if you wanted to go the Giannis route instead, I think that's a viable option. But you kind of have to decide whether you're going to put, what you're going to do about this early, because we're not going to be able to just, late swap our way there if he all of a sudden is announced out. Hopefully we get some more confirmation on this, but I'm leaning towards that. I think he's going to play, and in which case I do think he's a good play. The problem is I'm probably, if I'm wrong, I'm basically throwing 60% of my lineups away, and I can't do that. So I need to figure out a way to probably get less of Jokic than I have currently. Orlando and Milwaukee is interesting because I actually thought Cole Anthony would be a little more popular here tonight, and I think that he should be. So I'm actually going to make sure I get a little bit more than the field on him. The only issue is it's Cole Anthony, and then you've got short air with literally nobody else, so I don't want to miss out on the short air thing. It's one I'm happy to take an overweight stance on with no Steph and all that, and obviously no Wiggins and no Draymond, et cetera, et cetera. They're just missing so many bodies. But I think you could play Cole Anthony in addition to that value, and I think that's completely reasonable. So I like this matchup for Cole Anthony. Drop coverage. It's going to get his plenty of chances of looks at three. And I think it's worth gambling and just taking a shot on him, and not even gambling that much. He's going to have some ownership, but I think he's very reasonable at 5,500. Going through the other games, and I'll take a look back in the chat, see if there's any questions or anything. Yeah. And TJ asked about Giannis, and I think I answered that one just a minute ago. I do like Brandon Boston tonight. Now, there's so much other value. I didn't get to him in the first run, but I don't want to be out on the Brandon Boston business. I also don't want to be out on the Robinson Earl with no Zion. You do have DeJounte and CJ both playing, but you're missing Herb Jones, you're missing Trey Murphy, you're missing Zion. I think there's some opportunity to take some stabs here, but again, I'm sort of I don't again, if I just keep going for more value, I'm just going to end up with all of the Jokic, and it's a risky stance to take for a guy who's going to actually have some ownership on top of it. If Jokic was going to be like 8% because no one thought he was going to play, then I would just say, okay, I'm okay taking 100% Jokic. But if he's going to be 25%, you're not really getting that much differentiation from the field, especially considering I'm playing 30 entries, not 150 tonight. So really not getting ahead of the field enough on that if you are. So again, I'm talking through it because it's a tricky situation. I do like the Paul George stuff tonight. I look, this play has busted plenty of times, and you could start. You're not. If someone said I'm just going to fade Paul George, I have no issue with it whatsoever. I do think if you're not playing Paul George, you should have some exposure to Yabusele, some exposure to Maxey, and some exposure to Oubre. But I don't think that it's like an absolute. Any of these guys are absolute must. I did put Paul George as a core play because the price is too cheap with no Embiid and everything, and he's again we have George is probable, so I'm assuming he's going to play. But it is a little bit of a tricky situation. And you have to make these decisions early because most of the games are early, and we just have that one island game at 9 Eastern. Anyway, on the OKC side, and this one, I don't really think I need the Lou Dort value. It's fine. Game should be competitive. He'll be out on the court plenty of time, but don't we have higher upside guys that we could play? Yeah, probably. I don't think it's bad value, but I just think it's you're probably getting your safe 20 to 24 or some kind of a deal. That's sort of what you're getting with him in general. I don't think you're looking at a guy who's going to put up 40 out of the blue all of a sudden. And again, getting to some Shea right now, just because there's so much value. Otherwise I would not, but I do like playing Shea in competitive games because he does tend to step up his game when they need him to. A lot of the games they play are blowouts because they're really good. So this is a game where I think you could see a big Shea game. Not getting to anything on the Knicks side, and we do have Karl Anthony Towns as questionable too, which is also going to open up some other stuff. So, and then it makes Jalen Brunson a really strong play. So if he's out, I'm tired. I don't want to see these guys. I've seen this a lot through I just wish we could get information sooner. It just is really frustrating. Maybe I'm already in a sort of a sour mood, but I do wish we would get this information earlier, because it's gotten to be really tough, and you really got to grind your way through the slate and take some stands that are not probably the most optimal. Going back to Jokic for the last few nights couple nights that he's played, that's been a big dictator. And the second night it felt more comfortable to fade him with the spread. And the first night, I think it was I didn't decide until about 8 Eastern what I was doing with that. So a little bit tricky. Sacramento and Boston, Keon Ellis is showing up quite a bit for me. I actually think that I think I'll end up with more than 10% of him. I don't love this Sabonis play as much as the other ones, but again, we got to pay up for some people, right? Like, we've got plenty of value. So Sabonis, I guess fits the mold of another one you could take shots on. I like Malik Monk tonight as a one-off, just a random play, but I didn't get to him in my early builds. I'm going to try and take a look at that. Maybe I just force in a little bit of exposure. I don't think it's going to go crazy, but just get a little bit of exposure to him. On the Boston side, as of right now, I don't have anything that I actually feel like I need to play. It's just that Tatum, again, is another good spend up. We feel relatively safe about his range of outcomes. He's got a high floor, a high ceiling. I have no issue with anybody, and I have nobody who I'm trying to go out of my way to play from Boston. Washington and Chicago. Jordan Poole still questionable again. Sauer questionable. I'd rather just not do this. I just feel like, again, then you're going to have the Keyshawn George value if these guys are out. Is that better? Do we go back to the Jared Butler play if we get both Poole and Sauer out? It's something to consider. He did smash. Carrington makes some sense. It's a great matchup for pace. Maybe that's one thing I'll do is just try to get exposure to this game so I can have some swappability, and maybe then just make my Jokic decisions at 8 Eastern or right before 8 Eastern instead of at 7 Eastern. It's a way of delaying because I think you could definitely argue for a lot of exposure from this game. I'm getting a bunch from the Bulls. I love Lonzo tonight. This is one look, the minutes are going to fluctuate somewhat for him. The other night it was just because they were getting blown out so badly and it wasn't going well with him. But 22 to 24 minutes at Lonzo at 3,900. I could see 30 plus for Lonzo, so I'm in on that. I like the Jalen Smith. I'm not entirely sure why SaberSim likes him so much. I like the play. I don't think you need to do it, and I'm gonna probably cap my exposure on Jalen Smith at around 50, just because I don't think we need to go this crazy with it. But again, this is a premium matchup, so getting exposure to basically all of the Bulls, I'm not going to talk anyone off of. The one I would like the most probably would be a guy like. Probably will end up being either Kobe White or Levine. I just don't love the price on Levine. I think it's also totally fine if you want to just say, okay, I'll play Vooch and call it a day. But just having exposure to this game, and that's something I'm going to do right now in my first build, so I have some later game. Just get the games, just get like some exposure to that Washington Bulls game. What happens if I do that? Look, some of those are going to be 1-1s, but it gives me more flexibility to make my Jokic decision a little bit later, if we need to do that, if we don't get the news that he's probable or out or in or anything like that in the meantime. I don't have any new news that's come in, so we're still waiting to find out. Brooklyn has more than their 8 guys tonight. They've got a few more, but doesn't mean that Clowney's not a strong play at 5K. I think on a different site, we'd be talking a lot more about Day'Ron Sharpe, or, I mean, even honestly, I considered some Ben Simmons. I just don't think I'm going to get to it realistically. Clowney is the only one, and if I end up with just Clowney and Jokic, I'm in a weird spot. What do I do? Switch it up to Murray or Westbrook and leave like somebody from Brooklyn and leave like 7,000 on the table. That's why you have to make the decision before 8 Eastern. And I do think that's why I'm going to force in a little extra stuff. My lineups are not going to look optimal at first, but as the slate goes on, once we get news, I'll be able to adjust. That's sort of the way that I'm approaching this slate. All right. I just mentioned all the stuff. Banchero's supposed to play. Yeah, Banchero's in, but I think he's got a minutes restriction tonight. So I'm not. There's no way I'm getting to any Banchero. Now you could argue that that takes away from Cole Anthony, but Cole Anthony's still going to have plenty of opportunity in this game. It's really just going to depend on how he plays that gets him there or not. That's pretty much all I have, guys. I don't have a whole lot else to go over. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in. I am not playing on FanDuel, but I'll take a quick look over there. As I mentioned, it's not a big play night for me. Just trying to figure life stuff out. But it's going to be the same thing. You look at the value, and the top, what is that, 7? No, top 6 players are all Golden State. Then you've got the Paul George. So, look, it is what it is. There's just, they're down on bodies. There aren't enough guys there. just going to see exactly. I think they have 10 guys available. And what does scare you about Golden State is they tend to use their rotation. So like guys like Gui Santos, Pat Spencer, and Quentin Post might all get minutes that we're not, maybe not accounting for as much, especially if the game turns into a blowout. So it's just a little bit of a weird situation overall. Anyway, that's the way I'm treating this slate. Make your Jokic decision before 8 Eastern. Again, if you because then maybe you buys you a little bit more time where if they say at 7:30 Eastern that 7:40 Eastern Jokic is out, then we can switch over and play the Westbrooks with the medium guy, the 8K guys from the Bulls, and that's why I'm sort of forcing that in. I'm going to see what that build gives me actually before I get out of here. I'm actually going to tighten that price range though. I want to do 59 because I made my own. When you make your own adjustments, be wary because if you leave the minimum exposure too low, it'll just leave it on the table for you. And it's just something to be aware of. I would encourage everybody to be careful to make sure it's like not leaving more than 1,000 in NBA is usually a pretty good idea. You don't really want to leave money on the table in NBA. Other sports, no issue. Like if you want to leave money on the table for football this weekend, we'll talk about that tomorrow. I do, if I'm able to get back home tomorrow, I plan to go live for football, but I can't hold myself to that entirely. And I will post my exposures and whatnot, but I can't hold myself to it for sure right now just because everything's just so up in the air here. And honestly, I like that DFS gets my mind a little bit off of everything else that's going on around me, but it also, it isn't, I can't make an exact promise of where I'm going to be considering something pops up and I get an alert. I have to get out of there right away. And obviously it's with NBA, especially, it's very, very hard to play NBA without being able to late swap and being there every time. Yeah, MJ, it is a lot tougher this year. I agree with that. I agree with what you said. And I have found the same thing. I feel that it is much tougher. I'm just going to rebuild these real quick and show my exposures. And I just want to encourage everybody, you have to be using the late swap options. But again, sometimes they can't even come into handy because, we had Jokic projected, every site did basically had Jokic projected until after the second round of games started last, back-to-back days on, was it Tuesday and Wednesday or Wednesday and Thursday? Whatever. I guess it was Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's tough. I don't know what to say about it. It's really tough. I'm getting another alert. Okay, let's see. Let's make sure I don't have to evacuate. Has been reduced. Okay, that's good. Nice to see some evacuation orders being reduced. Just so you guys know what's going to happen, though, the winds are going to be down this weekend, which is awesome. It'll give the chance for the firefighters who are doing a great job to catch up. The problem is it's going to pick back up on Sunday night and then go into next week. And I know the state really well. I've been in a part of a million fire evacuations, never anything in the realm of this. But if it gets back up to those winds and we don't get the rain that we're hoping for on Monday, it's going to be ugly, and it's going to be ugly for the whole state, not just Southern California. It could see other things. You also got crazy arson reports and news that's sort of misleading, and we don't know what the hell's going on. It's just very frustrating. Anyway, we'll get through it, but it's a rough time. So let's see where I ended up with after. How come it's not letting me run the Sims? What is going on here? Oh, I'm on FanDuel. That's why. Now, this is what happens. I got slow brain. Sometimes that works. You get the. Let's do the rebuild again one more time, and then we'll hit the Sims. Sometimes, like you have, it's a lot of players say that when they get sick, they just simplify the game a little bit when they're playing. I think it works for every aspect of life. Like if you're a salesman, maybe you just focus your day on 4 clients instead of trying to make 50, 75 cold calls, whatever it is. Sometimes with DFS, you just keep it simpler. Don't make as many adjustments and trust the Sims and everything. Maybe that works, and those few adjustments you make are the ones that make the decision. And hopefully that's what's happening because my brain is not functioning at its highest level of capacity. It's just been a lot. There's been no sleep, and just it's just sad. Even if it's not always about lives being lost, but people losing everything they have who are close friends. It's brutal, and to see the place you grew up in just getting wiped off the face of the earth, basically, it's jarring. It's bizarre. It just feels so surreal. Anyway, so we're dealing with it the best we can. I am fortunate more than most right now, so I feel lucky for that. But it's just a very, very, very tough situation overall. Anyway, I'll get back to DFS in a second. I'm just going to run the Sims and see where I'm at with those little tweaks that I made and where I ended up. The Jalen Smith thing, I like the idea of the play because the matchup and all this, and he's cheap and there is a ceiling for him and all these things, but to get him to have like 70% of him feels a little aggressive. The minutes are definitely, they fluctuate, and he's been really good in his defense, for the most part. But he's been really good in very few minutes, and it's hard to rely on that stuff. So you just kind of hope for the blowout. So I think if you play the blowout angle, Jalen Smith is a great play. If not, it's tough. Yes, I do play single entries, but I'm not playing any tonight. I'm just playing the lottery tonight for what it's worth. I don't have enough time to. It was either one lineup or build with a system that I'm comfortable that I can do from the road, mostly, to some extent. And yeah, I'm still getting all that Jokic. I'm going to do a little digging. If I find out anything, you guys will be the first to know in Discord. Anybody who's a site member, we do have awesome site packages right now. It's been a little bit of a weird start to the year because Sheets and I were gone, and we're getting back in the flow. And then all of a sudden these fires start and sort of throw my life back up in the air. So it's been a rough start, but we'll be with you guys for everything as much as we possibly can be. And we always have SaberSim to fall back on as an incredible partner and just an incredible product, especially the projections, the sims, but also as it applies to late swap, really easy to use and very, very handy. So I hope everyone is using it and enjoying that. Thank you to the kind words in the chat here and that everybody's been sending. I'm going to get out of here and say good luck tonight, everybody, and let's get after it. Let's see some screenshots in the Discord.